Hello?
Hey Fred, what you doing?
Nothing much, man. Getting ready to watch a scary movie.
Ooh, I like scary movies. Which one?
I'm thinking of watching one of the Freddy Kruegers.
That's a classic.
Yeah, it is a classic. Although after the first one, they all pretty much suck.
What do you think about the Halloween films? With Michael Myers?
Halloween's good. I don't know, for me, after the first one, it doesn't get very interesting until Halloween H2O, you know?
Say, you wanna play a game?
No, not really.
Come on, it'll be fun.
You're acting kind of strange.
What if I told you I really like playing games?
Well, my popcorn's done, and I'm getting ready to watch a movie. Have a good night and play games with someone else. Hell. Okay, Zach, what do you want this time?
Hey, I just wanna play a game.
How about you go prank call someone else and ask them to play a game, okay? I'm gonna watch my movie. Good night. Silly. What the heck? Damn it, Zach. What do you want this time?
This isn't Zach. I told you.
Well, then who the hell is it?
I told you I'm not fucking Zach. I'm someone who wants to play a game called What's Your Favorite Scary Movie?
Hello YouTubers, this is Frederick Lopez. You're in a new episode of The Final Cut, at which I go over a retrospective review of classic horror films. And today we're going to be going over the original 1996 film, Scream. The first one. Not the sequels, but just the first one. Anyway, Scream is directed by Wes Craven. It's written by Kevin Williamson. It stars Drew Barrymore as Casey, Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis, Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, Rose McGowan as Tatum, David Arquette as Deputy Dewey, Matthew Lillard as Stewart, Jamie Kennedy as Randy, and the voice work of Roger Jackson as Ghostface. Scream was written in the mid-90s by Kevin Williamson. Now, some may know him as the creator of The Vampire Diaries. He also wrote the TV show The Secret Circle, as well as other films like Scream 2, Scream 4, The Faculty, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. He was 3 months behind on rent, and he was trying to be an up-and-coming screenwriter in Hollywood, but it was during a time when horror films were basically dead from that renaissance of the 70s and 80s, the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. The horror genre was dwindling. And he ended up taking a job house-sitting one of his friend's houses, and pretty much he was by himself and watched a documentary, basically a television program, about this serial killer in Florida. And he was just kind of scared about these real murders. And he was house-sitting a house by himself, and during that time he wrote the screenplay of Scream, which was actually originally titled Scary Movie. Hence, the movie parody Scary Movie, making fun of Scream. So anyways, he ended up writing Scary Movie, aka Scream, and basically submitted it, and it was a really hot script, well written, and it was a popular spec script around that time, so everybody wanted to buy it, but he wanted Miramax to buy the script. The Weinstein brothers are over Miramax, and of course they're going over their renaissance of films like Pulp Fiction, Sling Blade, The English Patient, and soon to be Good Will Hunting. So their sister company, Dimension Films, ended up purchasing it, and they were trying to find a filmmaker, and they wanted Wes Craven really bad, but him, alongside another couple of directors, said no. And at the time, Wes Craven just wanted to do another film. He wasn't sure about doing another slasher film after doing that. It's just like, is it really going to be worth it going in there? But then they ended up getting Drew Barrymore as a lead. And with the casting of Drew Barrymore, he was just like, okay, maybe there's something to this. So he ended up jumping on board as director. So they were going through it, and then Drew Barrymore at the last minute decided to not act as a main character, but instead the opening 5 minutes of this character Casey, who gets killed off. It was a bold move. Wes Craven was almost considering jumping out of the project. But then they're like, okay, let's just go through with this. Her reasoning was that she's a main actress, and with the rising star power she has, nobody was to suspect that she would die in the first 5 minutes. It'd almost be like a homage to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Which is crazy because Skeet Ulrich's character is named Billy Loomis. Now, Sam Loomis in Psycho was a boyfriend, and Sam Loomis is also the name of Donald Pleasance's character in Halloween. So there's a lot of influences of Halloween, and Kevin Williamson really loved the film Halloween and had a lot of references to Halloween as well as some other horror films. You can tell he was an aficionado of horror films, and there's a lot of references in this movie. So anyways, they end up casting Neve Campbell, and then they find the rest of their cast, and the rest is pretty much history. So what is Scream about? The film's protagonist is Sidney Prescott. It's 1 year after the death of her mother. There's these crazy killings going around a small California town called Woodsboro. And Sidney and her friends start experiencing these strange phone calls from this killer that's going around. He likes to play games, one of them asking, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And then he asks some other movie trivia questions. And whether they get it right or wrong, he leaves bloody pieces of them around the town, murders them in brutal ways. And her friends and her are scared, and they're trying to figure out who this killer is. He just has a mask and a black robe. Nobody knows what he is. So then Gail Weathers is a TV reporter. Her and Deputy Dewey, David Arquette's character, try to investigate who the killer is, along with Sidney and her friends. And Billy Loomis, her boyfriend, and her father become prime suspects, and they may or may not be the killers. And pretty much Sidney's wondering, what does this killer want with me? And then most of all, the question is it the same killer who killed her mother the year before? So there's a lot of strange stuff going on, a lot of suspense and thriller in Scream. The actors do a great job, I think. Neve Campbell is great, like she's great in everything, but as Sidney Prescott, she brings a right amount of innocence and just all-around American teenage girl to it, as well as being able to handle herself when the time comes. You really get to see an arc of Sidney Prescott. She feels like an everyday person. And this movie is almost a satire in the horror genre. The characters ask questions that we, the audience members, have been asking for the longest time when we watch a horror movie. Why are they going upstairs when they can run out the front door? Stuff like that. Or don't answer a phone call. Never say, "I'll be right back," because they're going to die. And then they have horror movie rules, you know, of like not having sex, don't do drugs, don't do anything bad, and you'll live. If you do the things that are bad, you're going to get killed. Which I guess the no sex, the no drinking, the no drugs, I guess I would survive in a horror movie. But anyways, I digress. There's a lot of good satire stuff in here, and there's a lot of references to other horror films in this. It's probably it changed the horror genre. It's the first meta horror film. Now the term's used a lot now. It's overkill, but meta. And it's very interesting because before that, the horror genre was pretty much like slasher, torture porn stuff. There were some thrills, some scares, but then ultimately a lot of the big franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, they dwindled out, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, they just started getting more and more degraded the further it went along, and it became like a parody. So the horror genre pretty much like dwindled away in the mid-90s, and this really brought something new and very modern to that time. And still is modern. You can tell the influence of Scream on modern day horror stuff now, especially with Saw or other things, and even the Scream TV series on MTV right now. But Kevin Williamson's script is very brilliant. Wes Craven's direction on this, wow. I have to say this about Wes Craven. Kevin Williamson's script was great, but Wes Craven really translated it well, and I don't think any other director could have translated a wonderful script like that this well. And Wes Craven's one of those directors who's defined horror in each decade. Last House on the Left in the 70s, A Nightmare on Elm Street in the 80s, and then Scream in the 90s. all around great filmmaker, and I really miss him. You know, he was one of a kind. Him and John Carpenter up there as the top directors in this genre. And yeah, Wes Craven, I love his stuff because he knows how to shoot it well, but he also gets the character moments and really elevates the script visually. You get to see Kevin Williamson's John Hughes moments, gone to hell with like a slasher horror film, and then referential stuff there. He also has a cameo as a janitor, and yeah, he knows how to shoot stuff very well. There's no shaky cam. Each steady shot. He knows how to build suspense. And then Marco Beltrami's music is really great in this. He does the Scream sequels, and he also did the score for Hellboy and Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. But here is done very well. There's great moments of suspense, and what I love about Wes Craven is that it's not entirely torture porn. There's violent stuff, and when it happens, it gets really hardcore, but then there's a lot of good character moments. He makes you care about the characters. He casts actors around a certain age. Now, Matthew Lillard is a little bit older, but still, they act like teenagers, and you actually care for them. You get to know them. He actually gives time for character development. And part of that's the great script by Kevin Williamson, but in Wes Craven horror movies, I love it because you actually just give a damn. Like, here you're worried about Sidney Prescott, and she's aware of the movie rules, but yet everybody falters in them. That's what's great about this film as a satire. They're not only aware of like what not to do and what to do in a horror film, but they fall guilty of falling into those traps of people in horror films. And it's just scary with a guy in a mask. He has a voice changer, so you don't know who the killer is. And that's just scary. Most of all compared to other stuff. Other stuff, there's pretty much supernatural abilities like Michael Myers or Jason, or like dream stuff with Freddy Krueger. But here, he's a real serial killer, and that's scary because stuff like that does exist. And it's almost like a Norman Bates quality of just like there's this guy who's just not in the right mind and he's killing people, and this could actually happen. It feels very real. So the stakes are elevated in this movie more than any other horror movie. Let's get to spoiler territory. Billy Loomis and Stewart being the killer. Holy shit, that was unexpected. Expected and unexpected. But here's what was the most unexpected part about Scream, was that the killer being two people. I thought that was a smart thing to do, and it explains why the killer was in a lot of places at one time. So yeah, that was a cool element. I like Jamie Kennedy's character being like a movie guy, but also into murder, so you like suspect him, but yet he's kind of like the movie buff in all of us watching this movie and watching all these horror films. I liked Courtney Cox's character as Gail Weathers. She's a tough journalist. There's a lot of good stuff between her and Neve Campbell. And the stuff with David Arquette's good. They met and fell in love in this movie before they later on got divorced after Scream 4. So I liked her character, and she ends up coming around to save the day, so that's cool. Very early, right after Ace Ventura, but around the Friends time. Henry Winkler's cameo as the principal I thought was really funny. There's a lot of good stuff there. David Arquette, wow, talk about a total role against his type. It's different from his role in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Road Racers, but he plays a very Barney Fife type of police officer as Deputy Dewey, and that's just really funny. He brings a lot of comic relief, and it's great with everybody being aware and falling into the movie horror roles. Having somebody so clueless and just not knowing what's going on, he's a total klutz. He's just like, what the hell, this guy's just out of it. He's not in this element, but it's funny having a character like that in this film. Skeet Ulrich does a great job as Billy Loomis. There's a certain level of like kind of like leading man to him, but he is very mysterious. You don't know what the hell he's thinking. And that's a good element to have. He reminds me a lot of Johnny Depp in A Nightmare on Elm Street. But it's really cool having his stuff early on, if you've seen it again or for the first time, with him being a suspect. Even more so the second time between him and Matthew Lillard. There's a lot of stuff in the way they act where you can see them one way the first time viewing it, and then when you watch the film upon repeated viewings, you get to see them in another light and how they act. And that's very complex doing that. I liked how kind of psychotic he was, and he really switched sides. The first time he was kind of like, hot boyfriend with a mysterious element, kind of a bad boy, and then when you goes to the killer, he gets a lot more psychotic and just pure straight up evil, and I like him playing such a complex character. He does a good job. And Matthew Lillard, yeah, he later on plays Shaggy in Scooby-Doo. He's in most of the Freddie Prinze Jr. movies, like Wing Commander. He was also in Hackers, and also The Descendants with George Clooney later. But yeah, he was a lot older, and you know, he does a great job for being such an older person to play a kid in high school, a teenager in high school. He really plays it well. He has a certain energy that's kind of like different and out there. And I love it, like when he gets stabbed, when they're stabbing each other, and he's just like, my mom's gonna be so pissed at me. Like, just stuff like that's funny. And he really kind of gets into the body of Stewart. Rose McGowan, she does a good job. She's a friend of Sydney, and yeah, she's pretty much like Dewey's sister, and she's just like a regular teenage girl, just like Neve Campbell's Sidney Prescott. And it was crazy seeing her die in such a gory way. Yeah, it's just very crazy, and then it is even more so of her losing her virginity to Billy Loomis. And she might die because she's not a virgin anymore, but then she succeeds in the end, and in a way it twists the genre rules, as is done for all the other rules. This film breaks the horror movie rules, and I love it for that. If I have to give Scream a rating, it would be a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, and an A+. This film makes the final cut. I can't say the same for all the other sequels or the films that try to mimic Scream, but Scream's something I didn't appreciate when it came out. I was like 5 years old, 5 or 6, when Scream 1 and 2 came out, and I thought they were okay. I was kind of more into the more gory stuff, and I was like, this is kind of tame. I mean, there's gory stuff, and I watched some edited stuff, but here's the thing. This movie, you're going to appreciate a lot more if you've watched a lot of horror movies in your life. You may like it if you're not a horror aficionado and you watch it. It's a great movie, but you're going to like it even more if you actually have seen the films they're referencing and really watch a lot of horror films to get the genre. And even for movie buffs, you'd really like this movie. I appreciate it a lot more after I watched horror movies. I think the reason why when it first came out I didn't appreciate it as much is because I didn't watch enough horror movies in my life. So now that I've watched enough films in the horror genre, I can appreciate this film much more. But yeah, all around, it's a great film, and I would go see it. Definitely. So, go see it and find out what's your favorite scary movie. Till next time, people. Check out the next episode of Final Cut, in which I will review Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola.